Here's what I accomplished in my game in the last year. Hi, my name is Alex. I'm a solo indie developer working full-time on my game. It's been a year since I've been fully focusing on the game, and it's time to revisit what I have accomplished so far. Today in this video, I will focus on destruction elements of my game. In my game, you get to battle with robots on a destructible environment, where just about everything can be damaged and destroyed. The robots have come a long way since a year ago, but the steps were incremental. Luckily for you, I frequently record the progress of my game. So let me show you how I arrived to the current game state in 1 year. It all started with my knowledge of a free 3D modeling tool, Blender, and one of its built-in extensions, a cell fracture extension. Using cell fracture, you can take just about any mesh and cut it up into pieces. Naturally, my first step was to apply this extension to one of my robots. Limitation here is that the robots do not react to taking damage. I wanted to see robots actually show the damage, even before they're fully destroyed. The first idea I got was to replace the intact torso with the pieces they were made of from the cell fracture extension, with some space in between them. So now you could see robots show the damage. It wasn't that satisfying yet, but it was an improvement. And I get to learn a lot and experiment with my own technology. Keep in mind, this is all built without using a game engine, but that is a topic for another video. The next element that stood out to me was that robots ignored the damage and just kept on walking around as if nothing was going on. But I wanted the robots to react to the damage somehow. At first I played around with the idea of freezing robot in place and shake it as if it was stunned by the damage. But it wasn't looking good enough to me, so I discarded that approach. I went back to the basics of animation system. I built my robots and animate them using Blender. The animation uses bones to draw the robot model. This animation data is exported into a file that my game reads and plays it back during the game. So I thought, since I'm in charge of playing the animation myself, what is stopping me from modifying this animation whenever a robot is hit? Nothing. So for example, I could have its torso bone swing back away from the direction of the incoming damage. Thus, I built a system where I could set a desired direction that would push a bone away from its animation pose. Then I had each robot keep track of its incoming damage and the direction, and use this data for the new procedural animation tool to swing its torso in reaction to the incoming damage. As you can see, the robot correctly flinches away from the damage regardless if it's coming from the front, back, or sides. Now damaging robot was far more satisfying. However, I still wasn't satisfied with the way I was showing the damage the robot was taking. I decided to take a different approach. So I took the same robot and cut it up in Blender myself for a more controlled approach, instead of getting random results from cell fracture extension. Now when a robot was fully healed, it would show the undamaged torso, but whenever it took some damage, it would hide some of those fractures depending on his remaining life. A little bit of simple texture work of two colors, it looked way better. The damage was visually clear. The natural next step was to have those chunks fly off the robot instead of just disappearing. So I would compute where those chunks should be based on the position of the robot, and spend a new object right there. I was very happy with the results. In fact, I was so satisfied with this approach that I applied it to the world environment as well. The process was the same. Take a wall model, for example. You use cell fracture to break it into a number of chunks. Whenever a wall takes damage, hide some of those chunks and spawn them to bounce around on the world. Of course, there were some occasional funny bugs, but it just proved how stable and reliable my game code was to handle all this wall span. And once this was fixed, the walls would properly break in a more peaceful way. Much like the robots, I added some color contrast between the walls and the fractured internal surface to make the damage visually pop. Here's one of the lightning arc abilities in the game, causing all kinds of chaos on both the walls and robots. At this point, I get an idea to spawn secondary debris aside from the main damaged pieces. For example, robots would drop small gears and bolts when taking damage. and walls would drop small rock pieces when broken. Not to be outdone, big robot bosses can easily break the walls. They specifically check if something is blocking their path towards you, and if so, they would use their close melee attack to clear the path. Excellent. I even experimented with working on the second character of the game, where you can melee kick and punch robots around that would ragdoll all around the map. It was very fun, but I might delay it as I'm not sure if I would have the time to work on another character in my solo game so far. But hey, let me know in the comments what you think of this bro man handling these robots, and I might change my mind. Meanwhile, I have continued to feel unsatisfied about the way robots are getting damaged. I knew I could do better. A few months later, I randomly came upon a paid Blender extension called Fracture Labs, where you can cut an object by drawing lines over it. That inspired me to create a new robot with higher fidelity and more interesting damage cuts. And thus, a Swordbot was born. Not only his torso can be damaged, but also his limbs and even his long sword. This is definitely pushing my game with far more work to do, but it looks just like how I wanted my game to look and how I imagined it to be. Damaging robots is now clearly visible, they flinch on hits, and there's a ton of debris flying off every time you make the contact. And this takes us to the current state of the game. Visually, the game has gone beyond what even I was hoping it could achieve without a game engine. If you're interested in watching the progress of my game, wishlist it on Steam, and catch me live and coding on this YouTube channel. All the links are in the description. Take care and kick some robots' butt.